welcome to another round of Hump Day Trivia. Today's topic is 80s movie trivia. So, hope you can join us. We'll get started here in just a couple seconds. Need to pull up the video so I can see our responses. It's good to be here today. Definitely got some interesting topics for you here. I'm excited about it, and hopefully you will be too. All right, we're going to get started. So, we are talking about the top 10 box office flops of the 80s. This is information I found online. I can't guarantee whether it's uh, actual fact of the matter, but it was pretty amusing and entertained me the entire time. So, getting started, we're going to go to number one. Number 10 is had a budget of 46 million and made a box office of 8 million with a net loss of 38 million. Looks like a period piece. Kind of weird. One guy in the lower left there kind of looks like Eric Idle. Or no, who was that? Oh, I can't think of his name now. Tip of my tongue. Any guesses? No? Okay, moving on. We're going to reveal what it is. The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that one either. I've never seen the movie myself. It was co-written and directed by Terry Gilliam of Monty Python fame, which explains why the one guy looked familiar. I'm pretty sure he was Eric Idle. See, I was right. Based on the tall tales of the 18th century German nobleman Baron Munchausen and his wartime exploits against the Ottoman Empire. He was nominated for 4 Oscars, including Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Visual Effects, and Best Makeup and Hairstyling. The original budget was 23.5 million, and though Terry Gilliam does insist that it was not, the budget wasn't as big as what they said it was. This film was released in 1988. All right. Number 9 had a budget of 18 million, brought in a box office of 1.3 million, and the net loss of 16.7 million. Hmm. This does look like an 80s movie all the way through. Any guesses? Maybe a couple more seconds. Excuse me. All right. Let's see what it is. 8 Million Ways to Die. It's directed by Hal Ashby and starred Jeff Bridges, Rosanna Arquette, and Andy Garcia in his first leading role. Based on the Matthew Scudder detective stories of Lawrence Block. The original script was written by Oliver Stone, but was then rewritten by R. Lance Hill, that was then fixed by Robert Towne. Stone was so upset over the ordeal that he wanted his name removed from the project, but the credits were already complete. This film was released in 1986. I wonder what Oliver Stone's script would have been. Probably much better. All right, this one should be an easy one. Budget of 39 million, box office of 11.8 million, for a net loss of 27.2 million. See some familiar faces in here, especially for 80s movies. Does feel like somebody's missing, but that picture probably would have gave away too much. Any guesses? I wonder if they make shiny suit coats like that anymore. All right, give you a few more seconds. Yes, we got a winner. Ding, ding, ding. Caddyshack 2. It's a sequel no one asked for but got anyway. Unlike its predecessor, this movie was hampered by a PG rating. The original Caddyshack was rated R, which many felt watered down the comedy that made the first one successful. Chevy Chase was the only returning original cast member. Everybody else bowed out. Directed by Alan Arkush, but only co-scripted by Harold Ramis, who directed the first Caddyshack. Rumor has it some trailers for the original Caddyshack state better than Caddyshack 2 with Chevy Chase voiceover. This film was released in 1988. Good job, Brent. All right, number 7 had a budget of 15 million and a box office of 1.9 million for a net loss of 13.1 million. Well, that's a pretty famous actress right there. That should narrow it down a little bit. This could be my next Halloween outfit at work. Oh, good job, Mark. The Clan of the Cave Bear, directed by Michael Chapman, based on the book of the same name by Jean M. Auel, which was the first of a series entitled Earth's Children. The dialogue is mostly through rudimentary sign language that is translated by subtitles to the audience, which at the time turned me off because I was too young. The movie did so poorly that the planned back to back sequels were canceled. There is a movie soundtrack credit performed by Sinead O'Connor, which I was surprised to find out. And this was even before her big hit, uh, Nothing Compares to You. So that was really interesting. This film was released in 1986. Good job, Mark. All right, number 6. Budget of 3.7 million. A box office of only $278,623 for a net loss of 3.4 million. And that is one very famous actor right there in all those pictures. This is a film I haven't seen, but I kind of want to see just for a few different facts. Tom Hanks with a baseball glove, but it doesn't look like A League of Their Own. But I thought that one was a 90s movie. What could it be? I know you guys are really digging deep to try to figure this one out. I'll give you a couple more seconds. I know it's none of the obvious Tom Hanks ones of the 80s. Those ones were too big, if you understand the pun. All right, let's find out what it is. Every time we say goodbye. The film is unusual in that it is partly in the Ladino language. It is a Judeo Spanish language of Latin origin, spoken primarily in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Greece, France, Turkey, and Israel. It still holds the title of lowest grossing theatrically released film starring Tom Hanks. Written and directed by Moshe Mizrahi, filmed entirely on location in Israel, was released in 1986. And the large Hebrew letters there translates into stolen love. So if you read a little bit about this movie, uh, Tom Hanks plays an injured Air Force uh, fighter pilot who spends some time in Israel and falls in love with this girl, marries her, and then I won't spoil the ending for you, but he ends up going back to war. All right, halfway there. Have you given up yet? Hang in there. You got this. All right. Film number five had a budget of 1.7 million and a box office of 1.6 million for a net profit of 600,000. But that's not a loss, but it's still a box office flop. I figure if they would have put more than $1 million into the budget, it could have been a lot better. But then again, this is the 80s we're talking about. I'm sure they were happy with that profit anyways. This kind of movie is very niche, and you really had to follow along with the current events. Otherwise, it's just going to look like a horrible rendition of what was that in one 80s movie with the little monsters? Um, 80s movies. Any guesses, guys? I know you can take a stab in the dark and probably get this one. The Garbage Pail Kids movie. It was produced, directed, and co-written by Rod Amato, based on the collectible cards that parodied the popular Cabbage Patch dolls, which I admit I did have some Garbage Pail Kids cards. I wish I'd still had them today. Considered by many to be the worst movie ever created, even though it made a profit, everyone hated it. Which I don't know if you've ever seen Adam Sandler's original movie Overboard. I would argue that Garbage Pail Kids is better than that one. The father of lead actor Mackenzie Aston, actor John Aston, after reading the script, tried to get his son out of the movie. This film was released in 1987. And yes, like the tagline says, it doesn't get grosser than this. All right. Movie number four had a budget of 24 million estimated, so they really don't know what the final budget was. or nobody really wants to admit to how much money they wasted on this movie. And a box office of 2 million for a net loss of around 22 million, maybe more depending on what that final budget was. This one I thought was pretty hilarious in the fact that there's an entire town right here in the upper right, upper left, you can't tell my directions, that has been painted pink. Yes, that is not CGI, folks. Our CGI was not that good back in the 80s. I see some palm trees. Maybe that'll give away something. Definitely look at those cars. Definitely early 80s. Any guesses? Come on, Mark. I'm sure you've seen this one. Operation Dumbo Drop. No, actually, that movie was a 90s movie. I was working in the movie theater when that one came out. But good guess, Brent and Mark. You guys both came up with that one at the same time. No. Operation Dumbo Drop was based on a military operation, actually based on actual fact. There was a military operation to try to get two elephants up to this mountain tribe to help them out with what they needed in order for them to help out the military. And that one starred Danny Glover, which I don't think the sheriff in the lower right hand side is Danny Glover. All right. Great guesses, though. So here we go. Honky Tonk Freeway. It's directed by Hans Schlesinger, and it was financed in part by Roy Tucker's tax avoidance schemes. How about that? Now that's classic 80s goofing around for you there. It was pulled from theaters after just 1 week. Some view the film as a satire on the American way of life in the late 70s, early 80s. The entire town of Mount Dora, Florida, was painted pink for the film. So that explains where some of the budget went. And then the film was released in 1981. Beau Bridges, William Devane, and Jessica Tandy. Who would have thought those guys who would become big, huge stars later on played in a movie that just failed miserably? Number three had a budget of 47 million and a box office of 16.9 million for a net loss of 30.1 million dollars. I wonder what that's grossed up today's money needs. But 30 million was a lot back in the 80s. It's like some pretty good makeup. I've seen this movie on some of the streaming channels, but I haven't watched it. I may want to check it out. I bet you this is part of the sci-fi genre. wonder how that Cyclops saw how to walk around. Be really interested to see the makeup process on that one. All right, give you a few more seconds to try to guess. Oh, Mark comes in at the end. Yes, it is Kroll. It was directed by Peter Yates and written by Stanford Sherman. Was one of the most expensively produced movies at the time. One of the first on-screen appearances of Liam Neeson. There were 23 movie sets constructed for the filming, and it also utilized 10 sound stages at Pinewood Studios. And it took 5 months and several hundred crew members to construct all 23 sets and 10 sound stages. It was released in 1983. And even though it was a box office flop, it has turned into a cult favorite. So, another reason to maybe go check it out. It's probably going to be horrible, but you know what? That's sometimes the best things about some of these movies. All right, number two had a budget of 25 million, box office of 13.7 million for a net loss of 11.3 million. Horrible video game. Yes, I did read that it came out on originally the video game came out for the Atari 5200, but the sales were horrible, and so they went ahead and switched platform to the Atari 2600. So, and from my memory of what the Atari was back in the day, yeah, it was fun, but compared to what we have nowadays, yeah, it would be even more horrible. So, movie number two, I really had to search for some pictures that weren't going to just blow the roof off of it. But surprisingly, it wasn't as hard to find pictures for this one as it was to find pictures for number one. Definitely looks like Jennifer Connelly right there. There's your hint. Again with the monsters. Beauty and the Beast? Close, but not quite it. I could see how you do that too if you took the top two pictures side by side. It does look like a Beauty and the Beast type scenario, but it is not a Disney movie. Or at least it wasn't at the time. There were a couple big name people behind this movie. There was even a really big music star in it too. All right, Mark, good job. It is Labyrinth. It was written and directed by Jim Henson and produced by George Lucas. Why? Because they were both good friends. The Allen title sequence is the first attempt at a photorealistic CGI animal in a feature film. Probably done by George Lucas's um, graphics company. The dance magic scene consisted of over 48 Muppets, 52 puppeteers, and 8 people in goblin costumes. That's a lot of coordination, especially if you've ever used a puppet before. It's to get that many people together to do all that stuff, just phenomenal. Of course, we all know that David Bowie played the main character, as you will. But Michael Jackson, Prince, and Mick Jagger were considered to play the Goblin King. Jim Henson wanted Sting, though, but his children convinced him to get David Bowie because David Bowie was just coming off of probably the peak of his career, and everybody was in love with him. For you Trekkies out there, one of the choreographers for this movie was Cheryl McFadden, who also danced in the movie uncredited and would later play Dr. Beverly Crusher on Star Trek The Next Generation in 1987. This film was released in 1986. And it's also another one on the list, even though a theatrical flop has turned into a cult classic. And now it's time for the number one. Dun, 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 dun. It had a budget of 35 million and a box office of 14.3 million for a net loss of 20.7 million dollars. Doesn't seem as bad of a loss as some of the other ones, but when you watch the movie, you see how horrible it really is. Some classic 80s stuff right here. I have actually seen this one once at my uncle's house many, many, many years ago. And when it was over, we both just kind of looked at each other and started laughing and why we wasted the time to watch the movie. There's real no. Oh, goodness. Yeah, it just brings back a lot of bad memories in a good way. One of those where you just want your hour and a half back so you could have went outside and done something else or watched a better movie. Now, this is the one that I had trouble finding pictures for because all the pictures gave away the movie. So I really had to be careful with how I did this. So I apologize if it's not very readily available that you can figure out just by the pictures I posted of what this movie is. Give you a few more seconds. I know Brent and Mark probably watched this movie. I know you're thinking hard too. All right, three, two, one. Supergirl. It was directed by Jano Swarek and written by David Odell. It was based on the DC Comics character of the same name. It was the first spin-off from a superhero movie. Alexander and Ayla Salkinds' Superman film series, which you all know was made famous with Christopher Reeves. It was the first film to feature a woman as the main superhero lead. Christopher Reeve bowed out just before filming began. The original script had Supergirl trying to rescue Superman. Uh, Demi Moore was slated to play Lucy Lane, but opted out at the last moment. I think that was a good move by her. There were approximately 5 script rewrites before filming began. One version had the same beginning of Superman from 1979. Helen Slater would later play Superman's biological mother Laura, in Smallville in 2001, and Kara Danvers' adopted mother, Eliza Danvers, in Supergirl 2015. This film was released in 1984. It's amazing that I saw it for Helen Slater. I bet you did, Brent. right, time for the bonus round. See if you can guess this one. This was my favorite, one of my favorite 80s movies. It had a budget of 37 million, a box office of 16.3 million for a net loss of 20.7 million. And it, my friends, is a cult classic and something that I would recommend that you have to see at least once in your life. And now I know you're seeing the guy there in the bottom. It is not Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That girl on the top right looks familiar. I wonder who she is. That monster in the monster in the top left kind of looks like something from Men in Black, but he's not. No clue, Mark? I am surprised. I would have figured somebody with your eclectic taste would have seen this movie back in the day. Of course, then again, you might not be somebody who's into these types of films. All right, three, two, one. Howard the Duck. It was written and directed by Willard Huyck, based on the character created by Steve Gerber. It was the first Marvel Comics movie ever created. You know that Howard Duck made a second cinematic appearance in the post-credit scene of Guardians of the Galaxy in 2014, exactly 28 years and one day after Howard the Duck's theatrical release in 1986. And speaking of which, he was also in the last two Avengers movies as well. Um, I forget where he was in. Oh, geez. See, now I forget the name of it. In the first of the two. But then it was an Endgame. He was in the battle scenes at Wakanda. Um, the executive producer, George Lucas, spent $2 million on Howard's duck suit. That is one expensive duck suit. John Landis turned down directing this movie due to the police car crashes in the finale. He felt it was too similar to his previous film, The Blues Brothers, in 1980. Rumored to be one of the most controversial high budget films in Hollywood history. And if you watch it, you will know why. Viewer beware. This film was released in 1986. All right, guys. Thanks for playing. Really had fun. Hope you guys did too. Uh, Check us out every Wednesday at 10 a.m. for some more trivia. We'll see you guys then.